Welcome to Big Daddy Bakes. I'm Big Daddy, and today we're going to be making hot cross buns. These are the 1 a penny, 2 a penny that you remember from the rhyme. And if you ever played recorder, you've played it before. These buns are a soft bun that are quite sweet and have a glaze on the top of them. They're just delicious, and I think that you'll enjoy making them. So let's get to it, and I'll show you how to do it. For this recipe, you will need 3/4 cup of whole milk, that is 110 degrees Fahrenheit, 1 packet of active dry yeast, 1 teaspoon of granulated sugar, a 1/2 cup of brown sugar, 5 tablespoons of unsalted butter that are at room temperature, a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 2 large eggs at room temperature, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1½ teaspoons of ground cinnamon, a 1/2 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, and I used fresh nutmeg and grated it, and a 1/2 teaspoon of ground allspice, 3½ cups of flour, and 1 cup of raisins. To start this recipe, we're going to take our milk, pour it into a bowl of our mixer, and then I'm going to add in the sugar and mix that. Then I'm just going to check my temperature. It's right where it needs to be. Pour in my packet of yeast. I'm going to let it sit. Once it's dissolved, I'll let it sit here for about 10 minutes and just see that the yeast is active and it's frothy. The milk is already a little bit frothy, but we should be able to see the yeast frothing as well. Alright, so our yeast has bloomed and it's good, so I'm going to start adding in some of the rest of the ingredients. I'm going to add the brown sugar, the spices, the 2 eggs, then I'm going to just give this a quick mix. Then I'm going to add in the vanilla flavoring. And the butter. And about half of the flour. And I'm going to let that mix for just a minute. And so that's kind of came together. And I add the rest of the flour, and I'm going to add the salt on top of the flour. Generally, I try to keep my salt from going directly into the yeast mixture. I mean, it's going to get together anyway, but if you do it all together, it's going to make a big mess and it may not rise properly. So it's just best to keep them separated until you're ready to mix them completely together. Now this is going to knead for at least 6 minutes. So I'm just going to let it go and keep an eye on it for the next 6 minutes. Okay, the dough has been kneaded for about 6 minutes. And it's soft, a little bit sticky, but that's what we want. You don't want it dry. We've had some escapage with the raisins, but that's all right. I'm just going to kind of fold them all inside. Okay, kind of got that into a round, and I'm going to plop them into a bowl that has some oil that's been oiled by oil spray. And I'm going to sit and let this rest for about an hour to an hour and a half till it doubles in bulk. Okay, so the dough has doubled in volume. I'm going to pull it out of the bowl and I'm going to press the air out of it. And what I want to do is cut it into about 15 even pieces. So I'm going to just make kind of a log. Alright, that's 15. What I'm going to do is roll them and get them smooth, put them in the pan. Now the pan has been greased. I sprayed some oil in it just so that one's not done enough. Try that again. There we go. I guess what you could do is you could weigh the entire amount of dough and then you could just divide that by 15 or how many ever you want to make. What I'm doing is I'm letting the board, my hand is just a cup, and I'm letting it roll around, and that's pulling it tight, making it nice smooth. Kind of poking those raisins back in there. Now for this recipe you could use raisins or you could use currants. I like raisins, but if you have currants, those would work as well. Alright, so I'm going to just arrange them. I'm going to cover this. I'm going to let it sit for 45 minutes to an hour till they've kind of puffed up and are closer together to each other. And then I'll come back and show you how to make the little crosses on the top of them. Alright, so my rolls have risen, and I'm going to go ahead and make the cross, the dough for the cross. And this is just about half a cup of water mixed with half a cup of flour. And we want kind of a thick paste. I think that's just about right. So I'm going to tip this into a bag. Seal it. Then I'm going to clip the corner. And this is where the camera quit recording. So at this point, you have our paste in the bag, we've clipped the corner, and so you need to pipe a line down the center of each row of buns and then repeat the other direction to create a cross. Once you've done that, then you can bake the buns at a 350 oven for about 30 minutes. Okay, so now that our buns are in the oven and they're almost out of the oven, I'm going to go ahead and make up a very thin milk glaze to put on top of it. So I've got a cup of powdered sugar, and I'm just going to, it's probably going to take a couple of tablespoons of milk to get this to where I want it. I want a very loose glaze. I think that's just about right. Very, very loose. Right, I'll be back in a few minutes as soon as the buns are out of the oven. Okay, here are my buns after they have come out of the oven. You see how the little crosses have kind of baked in. It's just lovely. So I'm going to take my glaze and I'm just going to enrobe them with the glaze. It's very thin. It should just run through. These have been out of the oven for about 5 minutes. Put this glaze on them. Won't really obscure the... It just adds a slight bit of sweetness on the top. And so here are our hot cross buns. They are lovely. They have a great flavor, bit of spice, a little bit of sweetness. They're incredibly good. Try these for your Easter table. I think that people will really love them. Thank you so much for joining us on Big Daddy Bakes. If you like what we do here on the show, please consider liking and subscribing, and perhaps share with a friend. Also, you can find all of the recipes at www.bigdaddy. Hi, welcome to Big Daddy Bakes. I'm Big Daddy, and today we're going to be making hot cross buns. These are the buns that you remember from the rhyme, 1 a penny, 2 a penny. So, they're really simple to make, and they're delicious. They're a soft, fluffy... bakes.com. Again, thank you so very much for joining. A soft, fluffy